Russia is attacking hospitals, mobile aid brigades, and ambulances. This is the action of a state determined to kill civilians. There is no debate. These are war crimes.
As the global community condemns Russia's leaders, Western sanctions are wreaking havoc on its citizens. The value of the ruble dropped 30% in a fortnight. It's now worth less than 1 cent US. Interest rates have now more than doubled to 20%. As ordinary Russians scramble to withdraw savings, cash is in desperately short supply.
Since Thursday, everyone has been running between ATMs to withdraw cash. Some get lucky, some don't.
It is not clear how we will be buying groceries and other stuff if the SWIFT is turned off. All foreign goods are paid for by card. How will we purchase them?
Yes, many businesses will notably suffer now. Tourism and logistics and airlines will suffer. Well, maybe that's how it has to be.
From across the border, Ukraine's foreign minister issued a plea to the Russian people.
You have a very simple tool to stop this madness. Demand from Putin to stop the war.
On the streets of Moscow and St. Petersburg, they answered that call.
I don't want this war. Almost no one here wants it. I want the whole world to see that we don't want it.
People are dying. People are suffering. There is a destruction. It'll be handed down from generation to generation. Hatred for each other.
In Putin's Russia, voicing dissent has lethal consequences. Critics are poisoned, opposition leaders jailed, ordinary citizens disappeared. One Russian human rights monitor estimates almost 6,000 protesters have been arrested since the invasion began 5 days ago. Many more bound to follow.
The authorities here know a lot of people in Moscow are not happy with what's happening in Kyiv. They're scared of their own people.
So as his soldiers struggle in Ukraine, is Putin losing the war on the home front?
We're joined by Jake Cordell from the Moscow Times now. Jake, how significant do you think these protests are?
Yeah, it's quite hard to tell, but we know that the protests have happened. We know that there's quite a lot of people coming out onto the streets. We know that there's been a big police response. More than 6,000 people have been arrested in the last few days at these protests. Whenever in Moscow you see people on the streets, you have to realize that protesting in Moscow is illegal. So these people are taking a huge risk, as we've seen from the police crackdown. And for every 1 or 2 people on the street, you can probably guess there were 20, 50, 100, maybe at home thinking about coming out onto the street. There is some discontent among society, and people are angry enough to go out onto the streets, even though they know there's a very decent chance they're going to get arrested or beaten by police.
So how hard are the sanctions hitting ordinary Russians?
Well, we're already seeing the sanctions hitting ordinary Russians. The Russian currency, the ruble, has fallen by 20, 30, 40% over the last few weeks. It's been incredibly volatile. Prices have already gone up 30% overnight. And the Kremlin just recently has banned Russians from sending money abroad. They're so scared about Russians trying to get their money out of this country, which is really becoming very heavily economically isolated in a very short period of time.
So how is that affecting the sentiment towards Putin and towards the West?
It's very hard to tell in Russia. You don't really have reliable polling information about where the public's at, but we know that they are more against this war, more against this foreign policy decision than any previous Kremlin foreign policy decision. If we compare to when Moscow annexed Crimea in 2014, there was euphoria. There was a rally around the flag. People loved Putin for returning what they saw as Russian land. That's clearly not happening this time around. The other issue which complicates this is how much Russians know about the military side of the campaign. The Russian state TV is very heavily pushing down. It's even banned TV outlets from calling the war a war. So that's how little information Russians are getting about this. So that protest sentiment, that discontent at the moment seems concentrated among liberal people in cities, younger people who are more getting their information online, maybe even reading Western sources. Now, whether that filters out into the wider public is probably going to be a result of the economic consequences in the next weeks, months, because you maybe had to hide some images of Russian missiles raining down on cities in Kiev, but you can't hide the fact that when someone goes to the supermarket to buy their weekly food shop, the prices have gone up 10, 20, 30%. Whether Russians blame the West or Russia for the implication of sanctions, that remains to be seen.
So could this groundswell of discontent, tentative though it may be at this point, could it be enough that Putin faces a genuine threat to his leadership?
I think the question we have to ask there is, where does the threat come from? There's no political leader in Russia right now that's free. The main opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, has been in prison for about a year and a half. And so there's really no kind of threat or figurehead to this protest movement at the moment. The one area people are looking at as a possible sign of discontent, someone that could influence Putin, is the military and security chiefs around him, the people he listens to. And that's because if the war doesn't go to plan, which it doesn't look like it is at the moment, although it's early days, are they going to get frustrated at Putin for his leadership? Are they going to push back against his ideas for an invasion? And that's where any kind of source of potential discontent that may have an influence is probably likely to come from.
Jake, you are speaking to us from the capital of a repressive authoritarian regime. How free do you feel to report honestly? Do you fear ramifications for your reporting?
For foreign journalists here, it's a little bit different from for Russian journalists here. Historically, traditionally, Russia hasn't gone after foreign journalists who are reporting in foreign language. Now, that has changed recently, actually. Last year, we saw the expulsion of a British journalist from the BBC, who the Russians said was a security threat. But I think we have to put it in context compared to what our Russian colleagues are facing, who are being labelled foreign agents, threat of having their bank accounts frozen, threat of being arrested, a knock on the door in the morning from the FSB coming to search their apartments. That's the daily reality for Russian journalists. And that's why when we come back to how Russians feel about the war, the question is, how much information are they getting about the war with such a heavy push down on independent media reporting?
Jake, thank you so much for your insights tonight.
Thank you very much.